7 children. One ordinary playground. A disappearance that defies all logic. What really happened that day in 1978? The truth is stranger and more chilling than you can imagine. Stay with me till the end, because this mystery might just leave you questioning everything. Don't forget to subscribe. You won't want to miss what's coming next. The salty wind always carried the sound of laughter to Seagull Bay Elementary, especially on the playground. A patch of worn grass and faded metal swings perched right on the edge of the world, where the land crumbled into the vast, gray expanse of the Pacific Ocean. It was October 12th, 1978. A Thursday. The sky was a clear, hard blue, the autumn sun warm enough to make jackets feel heavy. Miss Henderson, her kind face lined with years of chalk dust and patience, watched her second-grade class spill out for afternoon recess. 23 children, bursting with pent-up energy, scattered towards the swings, the slide, the patch of dirt designated for kickball. 7 of them drifted towards the far end, closest to the cliff edge. Billy Carson, freckled and forever chasing butterflies. Sarah Jenkins, quiet, her nose usually buried in a book, but today clutching a smooth, gray stone she'd found. Tommy O'Leary and Mike Davies, inseparable, already debating the rules of an imaginary pirate game. Lucy Miller, her bright red hair like a flame against the green grass, skipped beside Annie Peterson, who was small for her age but fierce. And little Bobby Ellis, barely 7, trailed after them, his shoelace untied, dragging in the dirt. They clustered near the old, gnarled oak tree that leaned precariously towards the sea, its roots gripping the earth like desperate fingers. From this spot, the view was endless water, broken only by the distant, hazy silhouette of the ocean's mercy, a rusty freighter crawling slowly north along the horizon line, a familiar sight. Miss Henderson turned to help little Jenny Martin untangle her scarf from the monkey bars. It couldn't have been more than 90 seconds. A gust of wind, stronger than the others, whipped sand and dried leaves across the playground, momentarily obscuring the far corner. Miss Henderson blinked, pulling Jenny free. When the wind settled, she glanced back towards the oak tree. They were gone. Not hiding. Not wandered off towards the school building. Just gone. The patch of grass near the cliff edge was empty. Utterly, unnervingly empty. Only Sarah's gray stone lay abandoned on the ground. A profound silence seemed to drop over that corner of the playground, a bubble of stillness that felt heavier than the ocean air. The cheerful shouts of the other children suddenly sounded thin and far away. "Billy," Miss Henderson called, her voice tight. "Sarah? Tommy? Recess time." She took a step forward, then another, her sensible shoes crunching on the gravel path. Her heart began a frantic drumming against her ribs. "Lucy? Annie? Bobby? Mike?" She scanned the base of the tree, the low bushes nearby. Nothing. Panic, cold and sharp, pricked at her skin. She hurried towards the cliff edge, her breath catching. The worn wooden safety fence, waist-high, was intact. No broken slats, no gaps wide enough for a child to slip through. She peered over, dreading what she might see on the rocks far below. But the churning waves crashed against an empty, barnacle-covered shore. No small figures. No brightly colored jackets snagged on rocks. Only the relentless sea. Children. Her voice rose, sharp with fear now. Other children stopped playing, sensing the shift in the air. The teacher on duty from the adjacent class, Mr. Davies, looked up from his book. "Eleanor, what is it?" Miss Henderson couldn't speak. She pointed a trembling finger towards the empty spot near the oak tree. They were right there. 7 of them. Billy, Sarah. She listed the names, each one a stab of disbelief. They were just there. Mr. Davies jogged over, his face paling as he took in the vacant space. Together, they searched. They called. They looked under every bush, behind every piece of equipment, inside the empty metal drum used for storing playground balls. Nothing. The other children, herded together by the growing alarm of the adults, confirmed it. They were playing pirates, one boy offered, wide-eyed. Billy said he saw something shiny near the fence. Another girl nodded. Lucy was chasing a seagull, but no one saw them leave. No one saw them climb the fence. No one saw anything at all after that gust of wind. The principal, Mr. Henderson, no relation, was summoned. His face, usually ruddy, turned ashen as the impossible truth settled in. Police were called. Within an hour, the small playground was transformed. Yellow police tape fluttered like strange, ominous bunting. Officers moved with grim purpose, their boots flattening the grass where children had just played. Parents arrived, drawn by the terrible, unthinkable news spreading through the small coastal town like wildfire. Billy Carson's mother collapsed on the gravel, her anguished cry echoing off the school walls. Sarah Jenkins' father stood frozen, staring at the abandoned gray stone an officer had carefully bagged, as if it held an answer. Chief Morrison, a solid man with a face carved by years of sea wind and responsibility, took charge. His officers meticulously searched the cliff face with ropes and lights. They combed the beach below at low tide. Divers probed the cold, murky waters near the rocks. Search parties fanned out through the surrounding woods and streets. Helicopters buzzed overhead, their blades chopping the air, scanning the land and the endless ocean. The Ocean's Mercy was contacted by radio. Its captain confirmed seeing children on the playground earlier, a distant splash of color, but nothing unusual. They had seen no small boats, noticed no activity near the shore. They were miles away by then. The afternoon sun dipped towards the horizon, painting the sky in bruised shades of purple and orange, but brought no answers, only deepening shadows. The playground, under the harsh glare of police floodlights, became a crime scene without a crime. No signs of struggle. No footprints leading away towards the woods or the road. No tire marks except those of the police cars. No torn clothing. No dropped belongings except Sarah's stone. It was as if the earth had simply opened up and swallowed 7 children whole. The ocean murmured against the cliffs below, a constant, indifferent sound. The air grew colder, heavy with the salt of the sea and the salt of desperate tears. The unsettling core of the mystery took root. 7 children vanished in broad daylight, in the space of a single breath, under the watchful eyes of an entire town and the vast, uncaring sky. Where could they possibly have gone? The only witness seemed to be the relentless, whispering wind. Night fell on Seagull Bay, a night darker and more silent than any its residents could remember. The searchlights cut bright scars across the darkness, illuminating nothing but empty grass and the silent, looming sea. The question hung in the frigid air, heavy and terrifying. How does something like this simply happen? The searchlights carved harsh, white tunnels through the gathering dusk, their beams stark against the bruised purple sky. They swept across the empty playground, illuminating the silent swings, the skeletal monkey bars, the patch of flattened grass near the old oak tree, a ghostly imprint of vanished laughter. Below, the ocean roared, a hungry, rhythmic pounding against the cliffs, indifferent to the frantic human activity above. Chief Morrison rubbed his tired eyes. His men had scoured the cliff face inch by inch, rappelling down ropes slick with sea spray. Their powerful lamps revealed only jagged black rock, treacherous crevices slick with green weed, and the churning, foam-flecked water far below. No scrap of cloth. No small, broken shoe. Nothing. Divers, braving the icy currents and dangerous undertow, probed the submerged rocks at the cliff's base. Their reports crackled over the radio. Visibility near zero, strong surge, negative contact. The sea gave up no secrets. Parents huddled near the school entrance, wrapped in blankets provided by neighbors, their faces masks of shock and disbelief. Billy Carson's father, a fisherman hardened by the ocean's cruelty, stood rigid, his knuckles white as he gripped the chain-link fence, staring out at the dark water as if willing it to spit his son back. Mrs. Carson was sedated, slumped in a patrol car, her muffled sobs escaping like trapped birds. Sarah Jenkins' father, Mr. Jenkins, a quiet librarian, clutched his daughter's favorite book, The Secret Garden, found still tucked inside her abandoned desk. He ran his thumb over the worn cover, a silent question burning in his eyes. Reporters, smelling the unimaginable story, descended on Seagull Bay. Their vans clustered at the edge of the school grounds, satellite dishes pointing accusingly at the sky. Flashbulbs popped, capturing the haunted faces of parents, the grim set of the chief's jaw, the eerie emptiness of the playground under the artificial glare. The questions started, sharp and relentless. "Chief Morrison, are you ruling out foul play? Is there any evidence of an abduction? Could they have fallen?" Morrison faced them, his voice gravelly with fatigue. "We are investigating every possibility," he stated, avoiding the word abduction, the word murder. "There is no evidence of a fall. The safety fence is intact. No footprints leading towards the cliff edge beyond the tree. We have divers searching the cove, search teams combing the woods in town. We are pursuing all leads." His words felt hollow, even to him. The lack of evidence was the evidence. It pointed nowhere. The initial search parties returned from the surrounding woods, dense stands of pine and fir that pressed close to the town's edges. They reported nothing. No trampled undergrowth suggesting a group of children running. No discarded candy wrappers or lost mittens. The roads leading out of Seagull Bay had been watched. Neighbors reported seeing nothing unusual. No strange cars, no vans. It was as if the 7 children had evaporated into the crisp October air. Then came the whispers. A tremor ran through the gathered crowd as old Mrs. Gable, who lived in the clapboard house overlooking the playground, was gently questioned by Officer Riley. Her eyes, clouded with cataracts, were wide with remembered terror. "The wind," she whispered, her voice thin and reedy. "That gust, it wasn't right. Came out of nowhere, like a cold breath, right off the water. And the light, just before." She clutched Riley's arm. "The light from the old lighthouse, on Gull Point. It flickered, went out for a heartbeat, maybe 2, just as that wind hit." She shivered violently. And then, silence. The children's voices just stopped. Gull Point Lighthouse, a squat, white sentinel on a rocky promontory further down the coast, was visible from the playground, its beam a comforting nightly rhythm. Maintenance logs later confirmed its light had functioned normally that evening. But Mrs. Gable was adamant. "It winked out. I saw it, cold as a dead fish's eye." Her words, dismissed as the ramblings of a frightened old woman by some, nevertheless sent a fresh chill through the community. Was it just a trick of the wind and failing eyesight? Or something else? Another fragment surfaced. Young Timmy Walsh, playing kickball near the school building, remembered something just before the gust. Bobby Ellis, his shoelace was untied. He was bending down. He looked up towards a fence, and he pointed. His mouth was open, like he saw something cool. Then the wind blew sand in my eyes, and when I wiped it, they were all gone. He hadn't thought much of Bobby pointing at the time. Kids pointed at seagulls, at clouds, at nothing all the time. But now, what had Bobby seen? Something shiny, like Billy mentioned? Something else entirely? The focus intensified on the ocean. The ocean's mercy had been tracked. It was a Liberian-registered freighter bound for Portland, carrying scrap metal. Coast Guard cutters intercepted it miles out to sea. The boarding was tense. Crew manifests were checked. All accounted for. No stowaways, certainly no children. The captain, a grizzled man named Rostov, was bewildered and slightly offended. He reiterated seeing the children playing earlier, a distant, colorful blur against the green cliff. "We were 3, maybe 4 kilometers offshore," he stated through an interpreter. "Too far to see details. We saw nothing unusual. No small boats near the cliffs. Nothing." The ship's log and radar records confirmed his story. The freighter offered no answers, only deepening the mystery. If not taken out to sea, where? As night deepened, the atmosphere thickened. Fog, uncommon for October, but not unheard of, began to creep in from the ocean. It slithered over the cliffs, swallowing the beams of the searchlights, muffling the sounds of the ongoing search. The air grew damp and cold, clinging to skin and clothes. The playground, now deserted except for police personnel, became an island of harsh light adrift in a swirling gray sea. The town hall became a command center. Maps were spread out, marked with search grids. Volunteers manned phones, taking tips that flooded in. Reports of children seen in neighboring towns, all quickly debunked. Strange lights in the sky, attributed to planes or planets. Suspicious strangers, usually harmless locals. Every lead dissolved into nothingness. Chief Morrison stood by a window, watching the fog swallow the world. He thought of the 7 faces in the class photo hastily pinned to the wall. Billy's gap-toothed grin, Sarah's serious eyes behind glasses, Tommy and Mike's matching mischievous smirks, Lucy's fiery hair, Annie's determined little chin, Bobby's wide, trusting gaze. Vanished, without a sound, without a trace. He picked up the evidence bag containing Sarah's smooth, gray stone. It felt cold, inert, a silent witness that refused to speak. A young officer approached, holding a small, slightly dented metal lunchbox decorated with rockets. "Chief, found this tucked behind the ball drum, near the oak. Name tag says Bobby Ellis." It was the first personal belonging recovered since Sarah's stone. Had Bobby dropped it just before vanishing? Or had it been there all along, overlooked in the initial panic? Morrison took the lunchbox. It felt heavy, weighted with the unbearable lightness of absence. He opened it. Inside, half a peanut butter sandwich wrapped in wax paper, an apple, a thermos likely containing milk. An ordinary lunch for an ordinary day that had become a nightmare. He closed the lid gently, the click echoing in the suddenly quiet room. Outside, the fog pressed closer, dense and silent. The beam of Gull Point Lighthouse stabbed weakly through the gloom, its rhythm steady, offering no explanation for Mrs. Gable's story. The ocean's roar was muted now, a deep, constant growl beneath the blanket of fog. It felt like the town, and the world beyond holding its breath, waiting for a sign, any sign, of the 7 souls lost somewhere in the vast, unsettling silence between the land and the sea. The playground was empty. The cliff offered no answers. The woods were silent, and the ocean kept its secrets. The question wasn't just where they were, but how such a vanishing could even be possible. The unsettling truth settled deeper. The earth, the air, the very fabric of the day had swallowed them whole, leaving only echoes in an aching void. The fog swirled, thick and impenetrable as the mystery itself. The fog didn't lift with the dawn. It clung to Seagull Bay like a suffocating blanket, turning the world outside into a blur of gray shapes and muffled sounds. Sunlight fought weakly through the haze, casting no shadows, only a dull, flat light that made the boarded-up windows of the school look like closed eyes. The playground, still ringed by fluttering yellow tape, was a ghostly stage under the relentless glare of the police floodlights. Their beams cut short in the thick air, illuminating swirling mist instead of answers. Inside the cramped town hall command center, the air hung heavy with stale coffee and despair. Chief Morrison stared at the evidence table. Bobby Ellis's rocket lunchbox sat beside Sarah Jenkins's gray stone. Both seemed impossibly small, impossibly ordinary against the crushing weight of their absence. Hours of searching through the fog had yielded nothing but soaked volunteers and cold frustration. Divers reported near-zero visibility in the cove. Search teams in the woods moved like ghosts, calling names that vanished into the dripping trees. Then came the first whisper of something new. Officer Riley, his uniform damp with fog, approached the chief, holding a clear evidence bag. Inside was Bobby's half-eaten peanut butter sandwich, the wax paper now marked with small number tags. "Chief, the lab boys got back quick on the sandwich," Riley said, his voice low. "They found something strange. Not poison, nothing like that. But there's a fine dust on it. Almost like glitter, but not. It doesn't match anything local. Not pollen, not sand, not salt spray. They said it's unusual. Shimmered under their special lights. Never seen anything like it." Morrison picked up the bag, peering at the unassuming sandwich. A faint, almost invisible sheen seemed to catch the light for a second, then vanish. Shimmered, he repeated, the word feeling alien and unsettling. From where? The air? The fence. It was a minuscule clue, pointing nowhere specific, yet it felt significant. A tiny piece of the impossible, clinging to a child's lunch. The mention of the fence triggered another line of inquiry. Morrison decided to follow up on Mrs. Gable's unsettling story about the Gull Point lighthouse. He drove the winding coastal road slowly, headlights barely piercing the fog. The lighthouse emerged like a pale giant, its base shrouded in mist, the powerful beam above sweeping rhythmically through the gloom. The keeper, Elias Armitage, opened the heavy door before Morrison could knock. He was a thin, stooped man with watery eyes and hands stained with grease. He lived alone in the echoing stone tower. "Chief Morrison," Armitage said, his voice scratchy. "Come about the children?" His eyes darted away. Morrison stepped inside. The air was thick with the smell of damp stone, oil, and something else, a sharp, metallic tang, like the air after a lightning strike. "We heard your light might have flickered yesterday afternoon," Morrison began, keeping his tone level. "Around 3 o'clock?" Armitage shuffled towards the massive lens assembly. "Flickered? No, sir. Ran smooth as ever. Logbook shows it." He gestured vaguely towards a ledger on a cluttered desk. "Old Mrs. Gable, bless her, her eyes ain't what they were. Trick of the light, the fog playing games." Morrison's gaze swept the room. His eyes caught on the brass housing surrounding the giant lens. Near the base, several. Fresh, deep scratches marred the metal. They looked recent, unpolished. "Those scratches new, Mr. Armitage?" The keeper flinched almost imperceptibly. He rubbed his hands on his trousers. "Oh, those? Banged it with a wrench last week. Clumsy of me." He didn't meet Morrison's eyes. "The light didn't fail, Chief. I watch it like a hawk, especially in this fog." He gestured upwards nervously. "Lives depend on it." Morrison moved closer to the lens housing. The metallic smell seemed stronger here. He touched one scratch. It felt rough, sharp. "You were here all yesterday afternoon?" "Where else would I be?" Armitage replied, a defensive edge creeping into his voice. "Just me and the light. Heard the commotion later, of course. Terrible business." He stared out a porthole into the swirling gray. "The sea takes what it wants. Sometimes quiet-like." The interview yielded no confession, no clear link, only the keeper's nervousness and the inexplicable scratches. Morrison left feeling the fog seep into his bones. Was Armitage hiding something? Or was he just a lonely man rattled by tragedy? Back in town, a different kind of tension was brewing. The parents, huddled in grief-stricken groups at the community center, were fracturing. Billy Carson's father, John, his face etched with anger, slammed his fist on a table. "We should be out there, not waiting for fog to lift. They could be anywhere, held somewhere." His voice cracked. Sarah Jenkins' father, David, quieter but radiating anguish, held up her book. "Held where, John? How? 1 minute they're there, the next gone. No straged. No sound. How does that happen?" He looked around at the others, his eyes pleading for an explanation that didn't exist. It's like they just stepped out of the world. Annie Peterson's mother, her face pale, whispered, "My grandmother." She talked about the old stories. The mists, the ones that take people near the sea cliffs. So they weren't just stories. A ripple of uneasy silence followed. Some looked horrified, others thoughtful, a seed of the unthinkable taking root in the fertile ground of despair. The lack of evidence was pushing reason towards the edge of folklore. Then, Jed Carter arrived, a grizzled fisherman whose face was a roadmap of wind and salt. He pushed his way into the command center, smelling strongly of the sea. "Chief," he rasped, pulling off his wool cap. "Need to tell you something. About yesterday. Out checking pots, about half a mile off Gull Point. Saw something just before that big gust hit." Morrison leaned forward. "What did you see, Jed?" Carter squinted, as if trying to bring the memory into focus. "Above the cliffs, right where the school sits. The air, it shimmered. Not like heat haze. This was different. Silvery. like looking at fish scales underwater, but up in the air. Fast, too, just for a couple of heartbeats. Then whoosh, that cold wind hit my boat like a slap, nearly knocked me over. And then he trailed off, shaking his head. Thought it was just my eyes playing tricks. Sun on the fog, maybe, but then I heard about the kids. And that shimmer, it wasn't right. Felt wrong in my gut. A silvery shimmer. Jed Carter wasn't a fanciful man. His description echoed the shimmer the lab found on Bobby's sandwich. It connected to Mrs. Gable's flickering light observation. Fragments of the impossible were starting to align, painting a picture Morrison couldn't comprehend. A shimmer, a gust, a flicker, and 7 children erased. That night, a silent vigil formed near the playground fence. Candles flickered bravely in glass jars, their lights swallowed quickly by the fog, creating small, haloed worlds around the mourners. Parents held each other. Townsfolk stood with heads bowed. The only sounds were the muffled crash of waves below and the occasional stifled sob. Chief Morrison stood apart, watching the fog swirl around the harsh police lights. The weight of the unanswered questions pressed down, the dust, the scratches, the nervous keeper, the fisherman's silvery vision. How did it all connect? Did it connect? Then it happened. A sudden, localized gust of wind, icy and sharp, unlike the general fog-damp air, whipped through the vigil. It swirled the mist violently around the old oak tree for just a few seconds. And in that moment, several people gasped, clutching each other. "Did you hear that?" Lucy Miller's aunt whispered, her voice trembling. I thought I heard laughter," said Mike Davies' grandfather, his face pale. Children laughing, just for a second. Others nodded, eyes wide with shock and desperate hope. "It sounded like Billy," someone else breathed. Morrison strained his ears, his heart hammering. But the gust died as quickly as it came. The unnatural swirl of fog settled. The muffled silence of the night rushed back in, thicker, heavier than before. The candles guttered. There was nothing. No laughter. No children. Only the oppressive fog and the crushing silence. The brief sound, real or imagined, hung in the frigid air. It wasn't proof. It wasn't an answer. It was a ghost of sound, as fleeting and insubstantial as the shimmer Jed described. It deepened the mystery, twisting it into something profoundly eerie. Had they just heard an echo of the past? A trick of the wind and grief-stricken minds? Or something else entirely? The fog pressed in, a physical manifestation of the impenetrable unknown that had swallowed 7 children whole. The residue on the sandwich, the scratches on the light, the fisherman's vision, the phantom laughter, they weren't clues leading home. They were signposts pointing deeper into the chilling, silent void where the children had vanished. The world felt thin, fragile, as if reality itself had torn for 90 seconds on a Thursday afternoon, and Seagull Bay was left staring into the tear, utterly lost. The vigil ended, leaving only the candles' ghostly halos and a deeper chill in the air. The phantom laughter, heard by some, dismissed by others, became another unsettling fragment in Seagull Bay's nightmare. Chief Morrison watched the last mourners drift away, swallowed by the fog. The sound, real or imagined, echoed the fisherman's shimmer and the keeper's scratches, pieces of a puzzle that refused to form a picture. The investigation was sinking into quicksand. Days bled into weeks. The relentless fog finally surrendered to a bleak November. Rain lashed the coast, turning the playground into a muddy pit, washing away any microscopic clues that might have lingered. Divers abandoned the treacherous cove after a near accident in the churning currents. Search parties, exhausted and demoralized, scaled back, then stopped combing the silent, dripping woods. The command center in the town hall shrunk, then closed. Reporters, having wrung every drop of drama from the unsolved mystery, moved on to fresher tragedies. Seagull Bay was left alone with its gaping wound. Officially, the case remained open. Unofficially, it was cold. The 7 faces on the faded class photo pinned to the bulletin board in the now-empty police station became symbols of an unbearable riddle. The residue on Bobby's sandwich? Lab analysis stalled. The shimmering dust defied categorization. Not organic, not mineral, unlike any known synthetic material. It simply was a tiny, inexplicable anomaly clinging to peanut butter. The scratches on the lighthouse lens? Elias Armitage stuck to his wrench story. No evidence linked him to the children. No motive emerged. He remained a nervous, lonely man whose only crime was perhaps poor maintenance. Jed Carter's silvery vision over the cliffs? Dismissed by most as a trick of light-on fog. A fisherman's tale born of shock. The phantom laughter? Attributed to grief. The wind whistling through the oak branches. Collective hysteria. Yet for the parents, the void remained, raw and howling. They fractured along lines of coping. John Carson, Billy's father, sold his boat. He spent his days walking the cliffs, binoculars permanently around his neck, scanning the horizon with a desperate, burning intensity. He became a gaunt figure, shouting Billy's name into the wind, convinced his son had been snatched by someone, a silent boat, a hidden cave, something tangible. He plastered missing posters on every surface. Even years later, the colors bleached by sun and salt. David Jenkins, Sarah's father, retreated inward. He haunted the library, surrounded by books, seeking answers in folklore, unexplained phenomena, and physics texts discussing theoretical rifts in space-time. He pored over weather reports for October 12, 1978, searching for anomalies in barometric pressure, electromagnetic readings, anything that could explain an impossible event. He kept Sarah's gray stone on his desk, running his fingers over its smooth surface as if it were a talisman. Her untouched copy of The Secret Garden gathered dust on her bed. Lucy Miller's mother, Margaret, found a different kind of torment. She became obsessed with the old oak tree. She'd stand for hours by the playground fence, now reinforced and topped with barbed wire, staring at the spot where a fiery-haired daughter vanished. She swore she felt cold spots near the tree, heard faint whispers on still days when the sea was calm. She planted forget-me-nots around its base, a small, defiant splash of blue against the gray. Annie Peterson's parents moved away. The weight of the unknown silence, the constant reminders in the small town, became too much. They left no forwarding address, severing ties completely, carrying their grief to a place untouched by the cliffs and the fog. The playground itself became a haunted place. The school board, pressured by terrified parents and plummeting enrollment, voted to demolish it. The swings, slide, and monkey bars were ripped out. The old oak, deemed unsafe and too painful a reminder, was cut down. Its stump, stubbornly refusing to rot, remained a dark, scarred circle in the earth. A simple memorial plaque was placed nearby, asterisk in memory of 7 bright lights. Gone but not forgotten. October 12, 1978, asterisk no names. Just a number and a date, a testament to an absence too vast for words. Years passed. Seagull Bay tried to heal. New families moved in. Children played in a new, brightly colored playground built safely away from the cliffs. The story of the vanished children became local legend, whispered on stormy nights, a cautionary tale told to keep kids away from the cliff edge. Tourists sometimes asked about the plaque, snapping photos before moving on. Chief Morrison retired, the lines on his face deepened by the unsolved weight he carried. He kept a copy of the case file, thin and frustratingly devoid of answers, in a drawer at home. Sometimes, on clear nights when the stars were sharp, he'd walk near the memorial plaque, listening to the ocean's endless sigh, feeling the chill of that October afternoon seep back into his bones. One blustery March afternoon, decades later, a young filmmaker researching unexplained disappearances tracked down David Jenkins, now an old man with eyes still sharp behind thick glasses. They sat in David's cluttered study, surrounded by books and Sarah Stone. They never found anything, the filmmaker asked gently, camera off, just talking. David shook his head slowly. Nothing that made sense. That dust on Bobby's sandwich. They called it anomalous particulate matter. Fancy words for we don't know it. He picked up Sarah's stone, holding it in his palm. Jed Carter, the fisherman, he wasn't a liar. He saw something shimmer, like fish scales in the air. He looked out the window towards the invisible ocean. And that keeper, Armitage, he was scared. Of what, I don't know. But those scratches, fresh scratches. He sighed, sound like dry leaves. The world is stranger than we think. We like our boxes, our reasons. But sometimes things happen that don't fit. That vanished just like they did. He fell silent for a long moment. Margaret Miller, Lucy's mother, before she passed, she told me something. On quiet evenings, near that old stump, she swore she could sometimes feel a faint warmth, like sunshine, but only in one spot. And once she heard a single, clear note, like a tiny bell. He looked at the filmmaker, his gaze distant. Was it real? Grief plays cruel tricks. Or was it a whisper? A signal from wherever they went? The filmmaker had no answer. No one did. That night, a thick sea fog rolled in, blanketing Seagull Bay. It muffled the town, swallowing sound and light. Near the memorial plaque, where the old oak stump still lay like a dark, silent sentinel, the fog seemed to gather, swirling slowly as if stirred by an unseen hand. For a brief moment, it thinned in one spot, revealing the worn inscription on the plaque under the weak beam of a distant streetlight. Then the fog closed in again, dense and silent. Out over the churning black water, Gull Point Lighthouse swept its powerful beam in its endless, rhythmic circle. A comforting, ordinary light, pushing back the darkness, illuminating nothing but the empty, restless sea. The ocean kept its secrets, as it always had. The 7 children remained a haunting question mark etched into the cliffs and the heart of the town, a mystery suspended forever in the cold, salt air between the land and the deep, unknowable water. Their story ended not with an answer, but with the lingering, unsettling echo of the impossible. The playground was empty. The world moved on. But the silence where their laughter should have been remained, a profound and permanent absence in the fabric of Seagull Bay.